Before a single incision is ever made, the body of a deceased person has already started to tell its story. Today, we're going to dive into how to read that story by looking at the external autopsy. It's this incredibly meticulous, non-invasive first step that reveals a shocking amount of information, everything from the type of weapon used to an estimate of the time of death. So, let's explore how these silent stories are brought to light. So here's our game plan. We're going to follow the exact procedure a medical examiner would use. We'll start with the basic rules of the road, then move systematically through the whole exam, literally from head to toe, and we'll even look at how they see things under the skin without ever picking up a scalpel. This quote just perfectly captures the whole idea. What we're about to explore isn't just some cold clinical checklist, it's not just ticking boxes. It's a really logical, meaningful process of discovery, where every single observation is a potential clue, a piece of the puzzle in figuring out a person's final moments. To really get the external exam, you have to think of it like a pilot's pre-flight check. It absolutely has to be orderly, it has to be thorough, and you can't skip a single step. Why? Well, because every little detail, every observation, might one day be picked apart in a court of law. Any slip-up could actually compromise the entire investigation. Okay, so the order of these steps is beyond critical. It's all about one thing: preservation. See, things like hair samples or swabs are collected before the main exam even starts to avoid any contamination. Wounds get photographed right away. This super methodical approach makes sure that the evidence is captured exactly as it was found, in its most pristine state. And here's the really crucial point. An examiner doesn't even need to open the body to start forming some pretty solid theories. The external evidence alone can tell a powerful story. For instance, the pattern of gunshot residue can show how far away a firearm was when it was discharged. And a detail like that, it could be absolutely pivotal in a criminal case. That's exactly why this stage is never, ever rushed. So once that initial setup is done, the examiner starts to collect the very first pieces of data. This is all about establishing a baseline, gathering the fundamental info that becomes the foundation for everything else that comes next. Now, these details might seem pretty basic, right? But they are absolutely vital. Build, height, weight, any unique marks. These are the first steps toward identification, to giving a person back their name. And a detailed description of the teeth, that can be a total game changer, especially in cases where identity is a mystery. For infants, even something as simple as head circumference can be a critical piece of the puzzle. After death, the body itself kind of acts like a clock. By checking out these 4 key changes, that's the stiffening of muscles, the settling of blood, the cooling of the body, and, the process of decomposition, an examiner can get a pretty good estimate of the time of death. They can even figure out if the body was moved after the person died. Okay, with that baseline established, the systematic physical search begins. The examiner moves meticulously from the head all the way down to the feet, making sure no area is overlooked. This methodical progression is absolutely key to a thorough and, importantly, a defensible examination. The investigation kicks off at the very top with the hair. Examiners carefully part it, looking for any wounds that might be hidden underneath. They're also noting its condition. Is it dyed? Is there mud or dust or any other debris tangled in it? These seemingly small details can be powerful clues, maybe placing a person at a specific location. The eyes really are windows to forensic evidence. The examiner is looking for tiny hemorrhages, called petechiae. They look like little pinpoint red spots and can be a sign of asphyxiation. They also check for any cloudiness in the cornea, irregularities in the pupils, or any bruising around the eye sockets that might point to trauma. The mouth and the nasal passages are inspected with extreme care. Is there a foreign object blocking an airway? Are there damaged teeth or a bitten tongue, which could suggest a seizure? Are there signs of corrosion from a poison or specific fluids coming from the nose and mouth? Every detail matters. This table is a perfect example of how simple observations turn into powerful forensic clues. It's like a translation guide. You see a frothy fluid? That points toward drowning. Bruises on the inside of the lips? That could mean blows to the face. Or maybe someone was gagged. Each finding helps narrow down the possibilities and builds a clearer picture of what happened in those final moments. All right, now we come to a particularly critical area: the neck. It's examined with painstaking detail, both the front and the back. The examiner is on the lookout for any bruises, fingernail abrasions that might indicate a struggle, or those telltale marks left by a ligature. And when a ligature mark is found, there is a very strict protocol that gets followed. The mark is described and measured precisely. Now, this is crucial. The knot itself is photographed and then preserved. The ligature is cut away from the knot, not through it. Why? Because the specific way a knot is tied can be huge. It can be like a signature. Moving on from the neck, the search now expands to the torso and the limbs. And this is where you can find more subtle but just as important clues. So, the examiner inspects the chest and abdomen for any signs of injury. They also check areas that are pretty easy to overlook, like the armpits. A very careful search is made for needle puncture marks, and the genital and anal regions are examined for any evidence of sexual assault. This is just a brilliant illustration of how even the limbs tell a story. The arms and hands are checked for what are called defense wounds, which could show that a person fought back against an attacker. A leg that looks a bit shorter than the other might point to a fracture. Even something like varicose veins gets noted, because that could suggest a pre-existing condition that led to a fatal pulmonary embolism, which is a deadly clot in the lungs. So, the physical examination of the body's surface is now pretty much complete. But sometimes the most critical piece of evidence is hidden just beneath the skin. And this is where modern technology provides an absolutely essential, non-invasive tool. Before making any incision, it's often a really smart move to get a whole-body X-ray. Radiology basically acts as a guide, revealing fractures, foreign objects like bullets, or patterns of injury that are completely invisible on the surface. It provides a crucial roadmap for the internal examination that's about to happen. And look, there are some cases where X-rays are not just helpful, they are absolutely essential. In things like bomb blasts or firearm incidents, they're used to locate projectiles and shrapnel. In suspected child abuse cases, they can show old, healed fractures right next to new ones. And when a body is badly decomposed, an X-ray can be a lifesaver for identification, revealing things like surgical implants or unique skeletal features. So, the crucial point here is that the external examination is so much more than just a preliminary glance. It is a comprehensive investigation in its own right, and it lays the foundation for everything that follows. From these observations alone, a story of the person's life and their death begins to emerge, providing the vital context needed before the internal autopsy can even begin to answer the questions that remain.